Three things sell fighter aircraft: political influence, price tag, and quality/capabilities. In the last few decades, the Chinese aerospace industry has blossomed. Literally within a span of 30 years, they've gone from MiG-21 variants to modern stealthy fighter jets. Yet, China has not sold almost any advanced fighters in that same time frame. Why is that? This video will offer some answers. Now back to the soothing sounds of jet engines. Let's first see who the Chinese have sold their fighter jets to throughout history. Because to illustrate the current situation, knowing just who they sold planes to before is important. Back in the Cold War, during the period of bad relations between China and the USSR, Chinese copies of Soviet planes were being given or sold abroad. The J-5, which was just a license-built MiG-17, was used by a fair number of countries, though most received it as Chinese military aid. The situation didn't get much better with the J-6, which was again basically a MiG-19 built in China through a license, though this time a few more actual sales were added to the list, including some countries that were away from China's immediate physical influence. The Q-5 came next, and it was notable because it was a fairly thorough redesign of the J-6, which turned it into an attack aircraft. It had dedicated export variants devised and was sold to the same, though shorter, list of countries. The J-7, based on the MiG-21, is perhaps the best-sold Chinese plane to this day. There's a whole myriad of variants of it, and those built from the 1990s have surpassed the old MiGs, sporting even redesigned wings. It was exported to that same list of countries as before. At times, various Western-sourced avionics and weapons were integrated into it, like in Pakistan's case. The type proved fairly popular as some countries replaced their older generation J-7s with the new generation of J-7s with modernish avionics and new wings. It was a dirt cheap plane and also fairly cheap to maintain, and it's still in service with some of those countries. Indeed, just in the last 10 or 20 years, newly built J-7s have been sold to Bangladesh, Namibia, Tanzania, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Sri Lanka. So why is this video saying that no one is buying Chinese jets? Well, all those sales are to the same list of countries. They're all obsolete planes. Even when China was much weaker economically and had much less leverage on various countries around the world, they still had a solid, if small and poor, customer base. So now that China is a major economic powerhouse, political influence should have increased as well, no? Thing is, if that influence did increase, it certainly doesn't show in the number of countries that bought newer Chinese planes. China has also offered the J-8 in the past few decades. It's basically a domestically enlarged twin-engined MiG-21. It had zero buyers outside China. Given that it's a mostly obsolete interceptor, no sales is understandable. The JH-7 was offered abroad as well. It's a fairly large dedicated strike aircraft, offered since the early 2000s. Again, zero buyers. A large specialized strike plane was outside the needs of China's usual customer base. But the J-10 is the first Chinese multi-role fighter jet, heavily used by the Chinese Air Force. Only a single export deal happened, to Pakistan, which is the most traditional of Chinese customers. And that includes the J-10CE variant, a dedicated export variant which includes quite a potent and modern mix of weapons and subsystems, including even an AESA radar. The FC-31, a stealth fighter, has been offered since the mid-2010s. Though realistically, back then it was basically just a demonstrator plane, sort of looking for further funding from various buyers. No one is using it yet, though a variant for the Chinese Navy is in development. So the only Chinese modernish fighter jet that has been selling is the FC-1, perhaps better known as the JF-17 due to its Pakistani lineage. Pakistan approached China to develop the cheap and light fighter jet for its air force. Allegedly, the two countries split the development bill, and it actually has made some sales. Pakistan, as it is the initiator of development, will not be counted as an export sale country. But in 2015, Myanmar bought 16 airframes. A year later, Nigeria bought 3 planes. It's likely that was a test buy, with more planes following. Now, there are many countries that have been rumored to be interested in the JF-17. Most are within that same list of countries that bought older Chinese planes. But this time there were new names as well, including Venezuela, Kuwait, Argentina, Qatar, Malaysia and Morocco. China itself has no use for such a light fighter, which could in part be a drawback to the plane's export chances. Had the Chinese own Air Force bought and used the plane, that would have made the plane look more mature and more desirable. Still, to this day, no other country has actually procured JF-17. Why is that? It has some things going for it. It's fairly cheap. Myanmar allegedly paid around 35 million per airframe. While newer versions are likely a bit more expensive, they also offer quite a lot. Modern AESA radar and a wide array of Chinese weaponry, including guided bombs and advanced missiles. The plane also comes with a Russian engine, basically based on the one that powers the MiG-29. Back in the 2000s, there was no other option, as China did not offer any engine of similar capabilities. For some 10 years, a domestic equivalent of that Russian engine, the WS-13, has been tested on the JF-17, but all serial JF-17s, including ones sold abroad, still fly with the Russian engines. Even the newest variant of the plane, the Block 3, despite early rumors of new engines, will be flying with the basic Russian engine. One explanation that is certainly plausible is that the Russian engine is simply reliable enough and definitely cheap enough, as it's been mass-produced for 15 years now, more so than any similar Chinese engine could be. Given the rise of salaries in China, the Russian engine is very likely actually cheaper than the Chinese one. It's apparent that any added capability to a newer engine is simply not worth the cost to JF-17 customers. Indeed, an advanced variant of the Russian engine was mulled, but in the end it was not used for Block 3. So with Russia in the mix, as they provide a vital component of the plane, there's another party who gets to say who the plane could be sold to. Basically, if there's a country that could buy Russia's own MiG-29s, even second-hand ones, it's plausible Russia may not allow for a sale of JF-17 to said country. Still, the JF-17 is small and cheap. Basically, only poor countries would go for it anyway. The real competitor to Russian planes would be the J-10, but that one used a Russian-made engine as well. Since it flew in the late 1990s, serial standard J-10s used exclusively Russian engines, the same ones that power flankers. It's only around the year 2020 that serial standard J-10s in service with the Chinese Air Force have been observed with domestic WS-10 engines. So it's plausible that up until very recently, the J-10 actually had a very poor chance of getting sold abroad, as Moscow had to give permission for any such sale. Despite some falling outs between China and Russia due to illegal flanker copies, which did happen in the 2000s, the two countries have since achieved an agreement on the copyright issue. And part of that seems to be that China does not offer its flanker variants for export, which would be a natural request. Indeed, unlike with all other planes, the J-11s and other flankers are not advertised by China for export. So that's all the planes China can realistically offer for export, for now. Well, there's the stealthy J-20, but it's so new and advanced that it's unlikely China will be selling it abroad for some time to come. The FC-31 has still not really completed development, which leaves only the JF-17 and J-10. But given that China is also offering the JF-17, the export potential of the J-10 may be limited. On one hand, it's being squeezed by the JF-17 offered to poorer countries, which have been traditionally buyers of Chinese planes. On the other hand, if a J-10CE costs $50 or so million, it's not going to be super competitive against not only newly built Russian jets, but also second-hand F-16s. Sure, capability-wise it may be ahead, but the political baggage may not be worth it. And there are a lot of second-hand F-16s flooding the world markets right now. Just as the new Cold War between the US and China is heating up, and just as the US is trying to influence countries all around the world to get on its side, rather than the Chinese side. The actual price point for the J-10 has not been disclosed. One rumor from the Dubai Air Show in 2019 puts it at just $40 million, but rumors are a dime a dozen, plus the context is missing. Perhaps the flyaway cost is indeed that, but maybe the customer pays more for the whole package. Indeed, The JF-17 is alleged to have cost Pakistan just 20-ish million for a naked plane without any support. So the engines are definitely a factor in Chinese fighter sales. They're likely the main reason why previous J-10 variants haven't been sold. The J-10 with a Chinese engine may have a bit brighter future. The JF-17 is also somewhat hampered by the lack of a cheap Chinese engine for it. But also the fact that a lot of those traditional Chinese buyers got J-7 fighters just a decade or so ago, so they still don't need replacements. And some of the other traditional customers, like Egypt, are now politically close with other countries as well. Indeed, politics is likely even more of a factor than quality when it comes to major arms purchases. One will often see high-ranking government officials from plane-making countries lobbying for sales, even presidents. There's a reason why Rafale is being sold to countries that previously bought Mirages, and why F-35s are sold to countries previously operating F-16s, and Russian planes sold to countries that operated Russian stuff earlier. Such bonds are not easily broken. There's decades of political alliances there, and there's a whole support and maintenance ecosystem in place. Crews trained in working in a certain way, a certain maintenance system. All those are also a factor that makes switching to a new seller not that easy. China is lacking all those really, at least when it comes to countries that have money to buy more expensive stuff like the J-10. It lacks deep, decades-long political ties. Those countries never used even older Chinese planes, but that can all change, in theory. In the early 2000s, basically no one bought Chinese drone aircraft. But today, there are countries that can afford expensive stuff using them, including Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Jordan, and so on. Part of the reason for that is that few other countries sold drones back then, basically only the US and Israel. And those two did not want to sell drones to most of the countries on that list. Today that's different, and there are more sellers like Turkey who sell their drones to whomever has the money. China has put its foot in the door and established some footprint in those countries. It offered decent performance for not much money. With fighter jets, it's not really the same. Many countries are willing to sell and there is greater competition. Still, putting that foot in the door is important. With the Cold War brewing, the world is in danger of becoming split into economic blocks. Sure, low-tech stuff will still be sold between blocks, but it's increasingly unlikely that the Chinese plane will be a prudent political buy for any country even remotely affiliated with the West. That includes countries in the Middle East. Let's remember Turkey, which bought the Chinese high-end air defense system in 2013, but was then pressured to cancel the contract by the West. And that was 8 years ago, when the West looked at China more favorably. Still, Morocco got away with buying Chinese SAMs, even though it's usually buying Western armaments. Also, fighter jets are not cheap. Many small countries can't even afford them. Some who can already buy Russian planes, but convincing those countries to switch from Russian to Chinese planes is not easy. It takes time. Most other countries are rich enough that they've been buying US or European planes. Making them switch to Chinese stuff is almost impossible in the current political climate. Basically, China has a narrow list of countries it can sell its fighter jets to. Some are so poor that they are buying Chinese trainer jets instead, including the JL-9, which is still partially based on the MiG-21, sort of eating into the low end of JF-17 territory. Other countries from the usual suspect list have not been in need of new planes for the last decade or two. So the Chinese planes have gotten a lot better and more competitive. But while China has upped their game technologically, it has not done as much politically. Despite hundreds of billions invested in or loaned to other countries in the last 2 decades, political ties to countries that would need high-end jets have not been achieved yet. When will that start changing? Who knows? It could be just years away. The change will likely be slow, but it's politics and to a smaller extent the lack of domestic engines up until very recently that have prevented China from selling its fighter jets abroad. And remember, Binkov may talk about hypothetical wars, but only real peace can bring us all together.